All right, YouTube, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown today of how I wired up my Auxbeam 6-gang or 8-gang switch panel up to my 2020 4RUNNER. So I'm going to swing you around here and we'll take a look at the engine bay first. All right, so this is inside the engine bay, and I'm just going to kind of show you how I have all the wires routed here for the Auxbeam switch panel. So I had decided to mount it to the top of the fuse box. I didn't want to buy any extra brackets or deal with moving. Since I do have the 2020, I do have an extra fuse box here. I'm assuming it's for the adaptive cruise control and kind of radar system. So most people would take that, bend it, move it back here so you have room to mount it. I didn't want to deal with any of that, so I just mounted it straight to the fuse box. Take this off. I do have the one-sided because I didn't want to have to deal with wires coming in both sides of the fuse box. If you keep them all on one side and you route majority of your wires around one side, either pick the right or the left, you can take the fuse box off still and have full access to all of your fuses. I do have one wire routed here. It's just some daytime running lights I'm running right now. Eventually, when I have more stuff plugged in, I will move this around to come out the other side so I can just flip the whole panel up this way and have full access to my fuse box. So the kit came with all the cables. I didn't use any extra cables. So one power cable going from the breaker straight to the battery. Off to the side there, the lid still closes. And this next power cable is coming down and then just sits over here in this area, comes back up right into the positive terminal on the switch. And then the negative, like I said, I didn't want them running both directions. It would make it really hard to move the fuse box lid. So I ran them both this way. So the negative cable comes down around and then in between the battery and the fuse box and then mounts right up here to the negative battery. The user manual said to mount directly to the negative terminal and not to another grounding strip, so that's what I did. If there's an electrical engineer out there that says that's not the right way to do it, let me know and I might swap it around. And then you have your remote wire that goes into the cab. I'll show you where I wired that through, as well as the trigger wire for the accessory power. It did come with fuse taps. Unfortunately, with this year 4RUNNER, some it might work, some it doesn't work. The only accessory fuse in the fuse box is up here on this short row here. And if I use a fuse tap, it sticks out way too high and I can't actually put the fuse cover back on without it interfering with that. A lot of people heat it up with a heat gun, mold it and bend it out a little bit so it can fit. I didn't want to deal with that. I already put holes in the top of it. I didn't want to deal with wires running in and out of it as far as waterproofing issues. And I'll get you a better shot of how the screws are mounted in here. I used the shortest screws in the kit for these ones, and then this breaker is a little thicker, so I used the medium screws. And I tested where the screws would go. I drilled a pilot hole. I put a screwdriver in there so I know they're not going to hit anything, any fuses under here. And with these size, if you use the smallest ones here, the medium ones here, they barely stick out of the fuse box. So you won't have any issues contacting your fuses underneath. So I'm going to flip you around, get a couple other shots, and yeah, we'll see how the rest of the wires are ran. All right, so I'm going to show you guys the inside of the fuse box, kind of where my holes are. All right, got the 4 screws, one here, 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 and here. And then, yeah, they're not interfering with the chart or the diagram at all. And then, yeah, they're barely sticking out. You could file them down if you wanted to, but I noticed no issues with contact. Right here, I just wanted to show you guys where I ran my wires. So here's a view from this side. Everything is tucked up really tight, right on the right side here, small as possible. I didn't want to take up a whole bunch of space. and they're kind of pinched between the power or the positive and the negative cable. So it holds everything over here. And then I ran the wires into the cab right in this grommet here. This grommet pops out right here, and then all you need to do is I drilled a hole in the middle of it. Since it was kind of rubber, the hole just shrunk back up. So then I cut a line halfway through it. So it's basically a C. The O-ring turns into a C. So then I could slide all the wires into it, and then the hole seals up around the wires, because the power wire or the remote wire does have a big nub on the end of it. So it doesn't fit through that hole. Even if you made the hole as big as you could, it wouldn't fit through that. So I made a small hole that just fits around the wire, and then cut a line in it to make it C-shaped to fit the wires around it. And then I just made sure that line I cut is facing down. In case any water is in there, it would at least drain out that way, and it wouldn't drain into the grommet. So I'm going to take you into the cab, and then I'll show you how I wired up the switch panel and what fuse I tapped into. All right, in the cab of the 4Runner, I decided just to mount my switch here. I didn't want to drill any holes or double-sided tape here and then run the wire through here. I just didn't like that look. This seemed like the cleanest look and the best area as far as where I'm sitting and driving. Now the wire is just tucked down in the back. So what you would do is you would just pull these two panels out. You don't need to undo any bolts or anything. That's why I like this spot as well. So all you have to do is just pull this panel out. The bottom panel pops forward a little bit, and then all you'd have to do is pull straight out from this side, and this whole top panel will pull straight out. And then I just ran my wires down through there. This wire is short, so it's best to run the wire from the cab up into this area, connect it right behind this switch here. And then yeah, I'll show you from sitting in the car. So from the driver's seat, if it was way low down there, it would be really annoying. So from the seat, all you had to do is kind of just look over. My hands here, and all my switches would be here. All right, to show you where the wires ran through. From the engine bay, I ran a wire through that grommet hole, like a coat hanger type wire, until it popped up out behind that carpeting. And then once I pulled that a decent way through, I taped the wires to the other end of that coat hanger and pulled all the wires all the way through. And then I just ran them to the left to this fuse panel right here under the dash. And then as you can see, I have my jumper. Let's see if I can get you a better angle. So that's the fuse I tapped into. And then I just crimp connected them and zip tied them up out of the way back here, away from the emergency brake pedal, so nothing's going to get hit. Just for reference, the fuse I tapped into under the dash is going to be the first ignition fuse, so the third one on the left, the 10 amp fuse. All right, so I just wanted to show you how the switch works. So if I turn on, hit the start button twice, it goes into accessory mode. And then I did leave these blank. They come with black ones you can put on them if you're not using them. I'm going to be adding lights here in the future, so I don't know what spots I'm going to be using yet. So I just left them all blank except for the DRL that I have. And then yeah, as you can see, easy as that, on, off. And it is auto brightness, so at night they're not blinding even if you wanted to leave the empty spaces empty. I thought they were going to be really bright and blind you, but it dims down as depending on how bright it is outside, so that's not really an issue. And that is just the backlights to my Diode Dynamics SS3 fog lights. I'll have a video on this shortly. Yep, that's it so far. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below, and yeah, I'll try to answer them as best as I can.